Some memories stay with you forever, not because they are perfectly clear, but because they are all you have left. They are the fragile, tattered map of a life you can never revisit. I had one memory of my father, just one. I was 5 years old, sitting on his lap in our small cottage by the fire. He was showing me his shoulder. Voice soft with reminiscence, three deep scars, terrible claw marks. They looked angry and silvered, even though they had healed years before. What happened, Papa? I had asked, my small voice full of wonder. He had smiled then. A sad smile, but a proud one. Emotion shifts to solemn pride. I saved someone important, my little star, a young lord. A monstrous bear attacked him deep in the whispering woods. I stopped it. He pointed to the scars. I got these for my trouble. Did it hurt? I whispered. Very much, he said, his voice a low rumble. But it was worth it, because some lives are worth any price. Remember that, Alara. Always protect those who cannot protect themselves. I had traced the ridges of those scars with my tiny fingers, memorizing their paths like a sacred text. 2 weeks later, he was dead. I never learned how. I never learned why, just that he was gone. My mother had died giving birth to me. My grandmother raised me those first 5 years, her love a warm blanket against the world's cold. Then she passed too, her breath fading in the night. And I, Alara, was sent to the orphanage in Stoneford. It was a cold, harsh place, a gray-walled institution where children learned that to be invisible was to survive. I carried that single memory of my father like a hidden treasure, the only proof I had ever been loved, the only connection to a man who had valued honor above his own safety. Now, at 24, I was a servant in the royal castle of Lyrindal. I had been for 8 long years. I started in the kitchens, my hands raw from scrubbing pots, then was promoted to serving in the great hall. It was better than the orphanage, better than starving, but it was still a life of shadows, of bowing and fetching and disappearing. I was an Omega, the lowest status in our Lycan society, meant to serve, meant to be silent. And I had accepted my lot. I had made a fragile peace with it. Until the night everything shattered. The night I saw a scar I recognized and spoke without thinking. That was the night I learned the past does not stay buried. Sometimes it reaches forward with a cold hand, grabs you by the heart, and changes absolutely everything. The Great Hall of Castle Lyrindal was a monument to intimidating grandeur. I had served there 1,000 times, yet its scale never failed to make me feel small. Stone walls soared 3 stories high, ancient banners of noble houses hanging like slumbering giants from the rafters. The long tables were a riot of lords and ladies, their laughter and chatter a wall of sound. And at the head of it all, the high table where King Kalen sat. I had seen him before, of course. He was impossible to miss. 7.5 feet tall, built like a fortress, with long, night-dark hair tied back and a beard that framed a face of stern authority. His eyes, they were famous. They shifted between molten gold and deep amber, a window to the ancient, powerful Lycan within. He was terrifying to most, but I had learned early that fear was a luxury servants could not afford, so I learned calm. I learned efficiency. I learned invisibility. Tonight was a feast for some victory or alliance. I did not know what, it did not matter. My job was simple: serve the wine, keep the goblets full, do not spill, do not speak unless spoken to. Above all, do not be noticed. I moved through the hall like a ghost, my pitcher a familiar weight, pouring for nobles who looked through me as if I were made of air. I was furniture, a useful tool. I had learned not to mind. I was nearing the high table when I saw it. The king was not wearing his usual formal tunic. He was in simple training clothes, a sleeveless shirt, as if he had come from the practice yards and saw no need to change. and on his right shoulder bore scars. Three deep, parallel lines, claw marks. Voice trembling with shock, exactly like my father's. The world tilted. My pitcher slipped, wine sloshing perilously close to the rim. I caught it just in time, but I was staring. I could not stop staring. Those scars, the same placement, the same cruel spacing, the same story written in flesh. How? Another servant, Bren, elbowed me sharply. Hushed, urgent whisper. Stop staring at the king, you fool, you'll get us both whipped. I blinked, wrenching my gaze away, finishing my pour with trembling hands before moving on. But my mind was a storm. My father said he saved a young lord from a bear in the Whispering Woods 20 years ago. He got those scars doing it. Could it be? No. Impossible. Thousands are injured by bears. Scars can look similar. It was a coincidence. A cruel, heart-twisting coincidence. It had to be, but the seed was planted and it would not be dislodged. I served mechanically, my body moving on memory alone. Then a voice cut through the din, deep and commanding. It was not loud, but it carried the weight of stone. I looked up. King Kalen was staring directly at me. Every conversation nearby stuttered and died. Servants did not get addressed by the king, not directly. I set the pitcher down carefully, my heart a frantic bird in my chest, and curtsied low. Your Majesty, come here. My blood ran cold. What had I done? Had someone reported my insolent staring? Was I to be punished before the entire court? I approached the high table, stopping 3 paces away, my eyes fixed on the floor. You were staring at me earlier, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Why? Truth or lie? A lie was safer. It was the prudent, survivable choice. But something, perhaps the ghost of my father's honor, made me tell the truth. Voice hesitant but clear. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I meant no disrespect. Then why? I took a shaking breath. Your scar, the one on your shoulder. I have seen one like it before. Silence, a profound, swallowing silence fell over the high table. I could feel the weight of a dozen noble gazes. The king leaned forward, the wood of his chair groaning. Where? My father, I whispered, then forced my voice louder. My father had a scar exactly like that. The same place, the same shape, 3 claw marks. He told me he got it saving a young lord from a bear attack 20 years ago in the Whispering Woods. King Kalen went absolutely still. Not a muscle moved. Something in his face changed. A fracture in the stern mask, revealing shock, then a dawning, painful recognition. He stood slowly, unfolding his immense height to tower over everything. Even with the table between us, I felt dwarfed. What? He asked, his voice now rough, urgent, was your father's name? Cedric, I said, the name a sacred offering on my tongue. Cedric Thorne, your majesty. The king closed his eyes. He breathed in, a deep, shuddering breath, and held it. When he opened his eyes again, they were burning, solid gold. Voice echoing with command, everyone out. The nobles looked at each other, confused. Your Majesty? Lord Alastair, the elderly council head, began carefully. I set out. The king's voice was a whip crack, a rumble of distant thunder that shook the goblets on the table. This hall, empty it, all of you, leave now. When the Lycan King used that tone, you obeyed. You did not question. The hall erupted into motion. Servants scattered like leaves. Nobles rose, their fine robes swirling as they hurried for the doors, confusion and speculation writ large on their faces. Within minutes, the vast, echoing space was empty. Empty except for me, the king, and the 6 massive, silent wolves that emerged from the shadows behind his chair. His personal guards, always present, always watching. I stood alone in the center of the cavernous room, terrified and utterly bewildered. King Kalen descended from the high table, his steps measured and heavy on the stone floor. He stopped a few paces from me, his golden eyes scanning my face as if searching for a ghost. How old are you? 24, Your Majesty. Your mother. She died in childbirth, giving birth to me. Who raised you? My grandmother, until I was 5. Then she passed. I went to the orphanage in Stoneford. He nodded slowly, as if pieces of a hated puzzle were finally clicking into place. You said your father's name was Cedric Thorne. Yes. And he died 20 years ago, when you were 5? 19 years, Your Majesty. I was 5, yes. The king ran a large hand through his dark hair, a gesture of profound agitation. He turned away, pacing a short, tight path before the hearth. The wolves watched him, calm but alert, their intelligent eyes flicking between him and me. Finally, he turned back. His expression was strained, etched with a pain I could not fathom. Sit down. Your Majesty, I shouldn't? I don't care. Sit. The command was firm, but not unkind. I moved to the nearest bench at a lower table and sat, my legs unwilling to support me any longer. He did not sit at the high table. Instead, he pulled a heavy chair from nearby and sat across from me, bringing himself to my level. The gesture was so unexpected it stole my breath. 19 years ago, he began, his voice low and graveled with memory, I was hunting alone in the depths of the whispering woods. I was younger then, only 31, arrogant. I thought my strength made me invincible. He paused, his gaze distant. A bear attacked, not a normal bear. A dire bear, massive and enraged. I was caught off guard, pinned. It would have killed me. Your father, Cedric, was passing through. A soldier, a commoner, he saw what was happening. He did not hesitate. He just charged in. He jumped between me and the beast, took the strike that was meant for my throat. I felt the air leave my lungs. I had never known how my father died, just the hollow, aching fact that he was gone. We killed the bear together, Kalen continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. But he was dying. The wound was too deep. There was too much blood. Tears pricked hot at the corners of my eyes, but I did not let them fall. He made me promise something as his life faded, the king said, his golden eyes locking onto mine. He said, I have a daughter, Ilara. She's 5, my little star, I call her. Swear to me you will take care of her, please. I made a blood oath. Do you know what that is? I shook my head mute. It is a Lycan vow, the most sacred, the most unbreakable bond we know. When someone saves your life, you owe a debt that transcends death. You try to repay it by protecting their family forever. I swore to protect you and your mother. I searched for months. I found your cottage empty. Neighbors said you had left. They did not know where. I sent scouts, searched town records, questioned every lead. I never found you. Your father said your name was Ilara Cedric. That is what I looked for. A sob finally broke free from my throat. The orphanage, they registered me under my grandmother's surname. Vale, Ilara Vale. I did not even know my father's true name until I was 12. I found an old letter my grandmother had kept hidden. King Kalen looked truly devastated, the weight of centuries seeming to bow his shoulders. I have been searching for 19 years, wondering if you were dead, if I had failed my oath, and you have been here, in my own castle, for 8 years, serving. His voice cracked. When you should have been under my protection, honored, cherished. Your father died for me, gave everything, and I let his daughter work in my kitchens. You didn't know, I managed to say, my own voice thick. I should have known, I should have looked harder. I should have, he stopped himself, mastering the torrent of emotion with visible effort. He took another steadying breath. This changes now. What changes? I asked, bewildered. Everything. You are no longer a servant. Your Majesty, I don't understand. By the blood oath, you are under my protection. You are the family of my savior. That makes you my sacred duty. You will move from the servants' quarters tonight. You will have rooms in the royal wing. You will have clothes, tutors, everything your father would have wanted for you, everything I swore to give you. I could not process it. It was too vast, too impossible. I can't. I'm an Omega. I'm nobody. You are Cedric's daughter, he said, and the words held the weight of a decree. That makes you somebody. That makes you more important than half the nobles in this hall. He stood, the movement decisive. Come, I will show you to your quarters now. I stood on legs that felt like water, my mind spinning in a dizzying vortex. This could not be real. It was a dream, a stress induced fantasy. But the stone floor was solid beneath my thin shoes. The king's presence was a palpable force. The wolves fell into step around us as we left the silent hall. It was real. He led me through corridors I had only ever cleaned, up staircases reserved for the nobility. The rooms he brought me to were not just a chamber, they were a suite. A sitting room with a hearth already lit, a bedroom with a vast, canopied bed piled with soft blankets and pillows, a private bathing chamber with a copper tub. There were windows with actual glass, overlooking the moonlit gardens. A thick rug warmed the stone floor. It was larger and more beautiful than any place I had ever slept, dreamed, or even imagined. I turned to him, overwhelmed. This is too much. It is not enough, he said, his voice firm but softer now. But it is a start, for tonight rest. You are safe here, I give you my word. He moved to the door but paused, his hand on the frame. Tomorrow we will talk more, we will figure everything out. Why? I blurted out the question that had been burning in me since the hall. Why are you doing all this? He looked back at me, and in the flickering firelight, his stern face seemed almost gentle. Because I owe your father everything, and because I failed you for 19 years, I will not fail you anymore. Then he was gone, the door closing with a soft, final click. I stood alone in the center of impossible luxury. The silence was deafening. I walked to the bed, reached out, and touched the embroidered coverlet. The fabric was finer than anything I had ever felt. The reality of it all crashed down upon me. The memory of my father's smile, the king's haunted eyes, the sheer scale of the change. I collapsed onto the softness, buried my face in a pillow that smelled of lavender, and cried. I cried for the father I barely knew, for the lonely years, for the terrifying, beautiful unknown that had just opened up before me. Morning came too quickly, its light foreign and bright through the strange windows. A firm knock on the door woke me from a fitful sleep. I had fallen asleep in my servant's dress, too overwhelmed to even undress. I opened the door to find an older woman with a kind, lined face and neat gray hair. She curtsied. Lady Alara. Lady? I stammered, the title like ash on my tongue. I'm not. His Majesty says you are to be addressed as Lady Alara, she said gently but firmly. I am Greta. I am here to help you dress. Breakfast is in an hour. The king requests your presence in his private solar. This was real. It was actually, undeniably happening. Greta helped me bathe in the wondrous copper tub, the warm water scented with oils. She brought clothes, not servant gray, but a simple, well-made dress of deep green wool, soft and warm. It fit as if it had been tailored for me. Someone must have guessed my size in the night. She brushed and braided my hair into an elegant style, not the simple, practical knot I used for work. When she held up a polished silver mirror, I barely recognized the woman looking back. She looked cared for, like someone who belonged in these rooms. Greta smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. There now, my lady, you look lovely. Come, we must not keep the king waiting. She led me not to the great hall, but to a small, sunlit dining room lined with bookshelves. King Kalen was already there, standing by the window. He turned when I entered. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. The green suits you, he said simply. Better than the gray. I automatically began to curtsy, the habit ingrained. He frowned. Don't, you do not bow to me. But you are the king, and you are under my protection. We are not servant and master. I am fulfilling an oath to your father. That makes us something else. I do not know what yet, but not that. We sat. Servants brought food, fresh bread, fruit, cheese, spiced meats, more than I typically ate in a week. I picked at it, my stomach in knots. Eat, he said, not unkindly. You are too thin. When was the last time you had a proper meal? Yesterday, at the feast. The servants eat the leftovers after. His jaw tightened, a flash of anger crossing his features, but it was not directed at me. That changes, too, he stated. We ate in a silence that was not entirely comfortable but not hostile. Then he set his goblet down. Tell me about your life after your father died. I need to know. I need to understand what you have endured. So I told him. I told him of the Stoneford orphanage, the cold, the crowded cots, the cheap labor we were forced into from the age of 6. I spoke of being sent to the castle at 10, of the endless scrubbing and hauling in the kitchens, of the sharp slaps for dropped dishes or perceived laziness. I described the art of becoming invisible, of accepting that my world was a small, gray circle of duty and survival, where hoping for more was a recipe for heartbreak. When I finished, his hands were clenched into white-knuckled fists on the table. I should have found you, he growled, the sound more beast than man. I should have torn this kingdom apart stone by stone. You couldn't have known, I repeated softly. That does not make it right. He looked at me then, his gaze intense, searching. What do you want, Alara? If you could have anything, what would it be? No one had ever asked me that. Not ever, I thought, my heart pounding. I want to matter, I said, the words feeling dangerous and true. To not be invisible. To be more than just someone who serves and then disappears. He held my gaze, and in his golden eyes I saw a vow as solid as the one carved in blood. Then you will be, he said. I promise you that. Over the next weeks, my world transformed. Tutors arrived, a stern woman for history and politics, a gentle man for letters and music. I learned to read complex scripts, to write in a clear hand, to understand the lineages and laws of the realm. I was given a clothing allowance, a small stipend of my own coin. I ate my meals not in the servants' hall, but at a table in the great hall with the lesser nobles and visiting scholars. I was not at the high table. That would have been a provocation too far, but I was placed respectfully, and the king had made it clear I was to be treated with courtesy. The wolves, his 6 constant shadows, adopted me immediately. They were not mere animals. They were ancient, intelligent Lycan companions, each with a distinct spirit. Silas, the largest, with fur the color of charcoal, was the first to accept me. He would often lay his massive head in my lap during evening gatherings, rumbling softly as I scratched behind his ears. He was the silent guardian, always positioning his bulk between me and any unfamiliar courtier. Ember, whose coat held shades of rust and gold, was mischievous. He would bring me gifts, a stolen scarf, a crushed flower from the garden once, alarmingly, a council member's leather gauntlet. Returning it with flushed apologies became a ritual, but his antics made me laugh, a genuine sound that felt strange and wonderful. Frost, pale gray and white, was the quiet soul. He would curl at my feet while I read, seeking quiet companionship. Gale, sleek and restless, paced constantly. I learned to give him small tasks, carrying a folded note to a guard, walking the perimeter of the garden with me. Purpose soothed his anxious energy. Brute, scarred, and missing a piece of one ear was the warrior. He was wary of everyone but Kalen and, to my surprise, me. With me, he was gentle, often resting his chin on my knee, his dark eyes holding a trust that humbled me. The youngest pup, though he was decades old, was all exuberant devotion, following me everywhere, tripping me daily, his loyalty absolute. The court watched and they learned. The wolves had claimed me, and in Lycan custom, wolves only claim family. The whispers began in earnest. A servant elevated overnight. It is unprecedented. Some, like Bren from the kitchens, were quietly happy for me. He caught me alone in a corridor one day. You deserve this, Alara. Your father was a hero. His blood deserves honor. But most were confused or jealous. My closest friend among the servants, Liana, would no longer meet my eyes. She walked past me as if I were a ghost again, the divide between us now a chasm. I tried to bridge it, but my new rooms and dresses were a wall she could not see past. I was no longer one of them, but I was not nobility either. I existed in a strange, liminal space belonging nowhere. The minor nobles at my table were polite but distant. They did not know what to make of a common born Omega who carried herself with a new, quiet confidence, who had the king's ear and the wolf's allegiance. I was an anomaly, and anomalies make people uneasy. King Kalen Rowan, as he asked me to call him in private, checked on me daily. He asked after my studies, my comfort, if anyone had slighted me. His protectiveness was a tangible force, a shield I had never asked for but was beginning to rely upon. It felt like more than duty. One afternoon, 3 weeks into this new life, he found me in the library. I was staring at a page of history, but the words blurred together. You are troubled, he said, appearing beside me as silently as a shadow. I started, then sighed. I do not know who I am anymore. I am not a servant, but I am not noble. I do not fit anywhere. He sat in the chair opposite, his large frame making it seem small. You are Alara, daughter of Cedric. That is who you are. The rest is just noise, labels people try to put on you to make themselves comfortable. But those labels matter here, I insisted. Status is everything, and I have no real status. I am here because of a debt, because my father died. That is not the same as earning my place. Your father earned it, he said, his voice low and fierce. With the highest price anyone can pay, his honor is now yours, his sacrifice is your legacy. You do not need to earn what was already bought with his blood. I looked down at my hands, now clean and soft. It does not feel that way. Then let me show you, he said, standing. He led me deep into the castle's heart, to a chamber I never knew existed. The air was cool and old. The walls were not stone, but dark, polished wood covered in intricate, ancient carvings, runes, names, dates. In the center was a circular dais. This is the oath chamber, Rowan said, his voice reverent, where blood oaths are sworn and recorded. Every sacred vow made by a Lycan ruler for 1,000 years is here. He walked to a section of the wall, his fingers tracing lines that looked newer, the wood lighter. Here, 19 years ago, I carved this myself. I stepped closer. The runes were complex, but I could read the names woven into them, Cedric Thorn, and my own, Elara. It says, Rowan translated softly, to Cedric Thorn, who gave his life for mine, I swear to protect his family, his daughter Alara, to honor his sacrifice until my last breath. Let the gods witness. Let the blood bind. He looked at me, his eyes grave. A blood oath is not poetry. It is magic. It is binding. To break it would not just be dishonor, it would unravel the vow taker from within. My life is tied to that promise, Alara. I reached out, my fingertips brushing the carved proof of my father's worth, of my own named place in history. I did not know it was so profound. Most do not, but I need you to understand. You are not here because I am kind. You are not here out of pity. You are here because if I fail to protect you, If I fail to honor you, the oath itself will end me. Your worth is carved into the foundation of this kingdom. You belong here more than any noble whose name is simply inherited. The tears came then, silent and hot. I wished he could have known his sacrifice meant this much. He knew, Rowan said with certainty. When he made me promise, he knew I would keep it. He trusted me with his most precious treasure, your future. We stood in the silent chamber, surrounded by the weight of centuries of promises, and for the first time I felt the shift within me. I did belong. Not because of titles or dresses, but because of the honor of a good man, immortalized in wood and magic. It was a foundation I could finally stand upon. Rowan insisted I learn to defend myself. You are under my protection, he said one morning in the training yard, but you should have your own strength as well. He assigned me to Captain Nyla, a fierce, scarred female warrior who had served him for 50 years. She did not coddle me. She drilled me mercilessly in footwork, balance, and how to hold a dagger. She taught me to read an opponent's intention, to use my smaller size as an advantage. And I discovered something thrilling. I was good at it. My body learned quickly, my movements becoming fluid and sharp. There was a strength in me I had never tapped, a latent power that went beyond my Omega designation. After a session where I had successfully parried a series of her strikes, Captain Nyla actually grinned. You're a natural, my lady. Give me 6 months. I'll make you dangerous. I felt a flush of pure, undiluted pride, not in my rooms or my clothes, but in my own capability. Rowan watched my training sometimes, a silent, imposing figure at the edge of the yard. One day, after I had managed to disarm Captain Nyla, who I suspected let me, he approached. Well done, he said, a note of genuine admiration in his voice. I was breathing hard, sweat damp and aching, but I smiled. Thank you. You are different than when you arrived, he observed, his gaze sweeping over me. Stronger, and not just in your arms. I feel different, I admitted, wiping my brow, like I am becoming more myself. The person I was supposed to be before the world told me to be small. He reached out then, and with a gentleness that belied his size, he touched my cheek. It was a brief, shocking contact. You were never small, Ilara, he murmured. You just did not know your own size yet. Your father would be proud of you. That became my touchstone, the idea that my father would be proud. It pushed me to study harder, to train longer, to learn the intricate dance of court politics. I was determined to become someone worthy of the sacrifice, worthy of the oath carved in the sacred wood. Why? I asked him one evening in the library, the fire crackling. Why do you care so much? You have fulfilled the oath 100 times over. He was silent for a long moment, staring into the flames. Because I failed him, I failed you. I am trying to make it right. You have, I insisted. You have given me more than I ever dreamed. It is not about enough, he said, his voice rough. It is about honor, about keeping my word even 19 years late. But there was something else in his eyes, a shadow I could not name, a truth he was holding back. I did not dare push it. 2 months after that fateful feast, the first true storm broke. I was walking alone in the castle gardens, enjoying a rare afternoon of solitude, when Lady Seraphine approached. She was stunningly beautiful, wealthy, from one of the oldest alpha families, and had been maneuvering to become queen for years. So, she said, her voice sweet as poison, you are the little servant girl the king is so preoccupied with. I curtsied, my instincts screaming, Lady Seraphine. Oh, don't bother, she sneered. We both know what you are, a charity case, a project born of guilt. He will grow tired of the novelty. They always do. And you will go back to scrubbing floors where you belong. Her words found their mark, igniting the secret fear that lived in my heart. I am here because of a debt owed to my father, I said, forcing my voice steady. Your father? A dead soldier? How convenient. She took a step closer, her perfume cloying. How very convenient that you appear with a sentimental story and a matching scar. For all anyone knows, you fabricated the whole tale. You are manipulating the king's grief and guilt. I am not, I said, heat rising to my face. I would never, wouldn't you? Her smile was icy. It seems awfully fortunate. A common nobody suddenly living like a lady, with the king's personal attention. You must be thrilled with your cleverness. Before I could form a retort, a voice colder than winter stone cut between us. That is enough. Rowan stood 20 feet away, having approached without a sound. His 6 wolves were a semicircle behind him, low growls vibrating the air. He crossed the distance in swift strides, placing himself squarely between Seraphine and me. You will apologize to her. Now, Seraphine paled. Your Majesty, I was merely. I heard what you were merely doing, he interrupted, his voice dropping to a deadly quiet. You accused her of deceit. You insulted her father's memory and his sacrifice. Apologize, or you will be escorted from this castle and your family's standing will be reconsidered. Choose. Lady Seraphine looked from his furious face to mine, realizing she had miscalculated catastrophically. I apologize, Lady Alara, she spat the title. My words were unworthy. Leave us, Rowan said. She fled. He turned to me, the anger melting from his expression, replaced by concern. Are you all right? I am fine, I said, but my voice wavered. Some of what she said is true. I am just a servant. I don't truly belong here. Stop. He gripped my shoulders, his touch firm but careful. You belong here because I say you do, because your father's honor demands it, because. He hesitated, his golden eyes searching mine. Because you matter, not as a debt, not as an obligation. Do you understand? I looked up at this powerful, ancient king who had upended my world, who defended me with a ferocity I did not deserve. The unasked question finally broke free. Why do you care so much, truly? He released me as if burned, taking a step back. The mask of the king slipped, revealing a vulnerability that stole my breath. I do not know, he said, the words torn from him. I told myself it was duty, guilt, but it is more. You make me feel things I have not felt in centuries. Things I believed were dead in me. Hope, a need to protect that has nothing to do with oaths, a warmth when you smile, a rage when others hurt you. He shook his head as if trying to dispel the confession. I thought caring was a weakness for a king, a liability, but with you, he trailed off, his gaze holding mine captive. Forget I said that. I am your protector, that is all. But his eyes, burning with a tender, fierce light, told a different, terrifying, wonderful story. And in that moment, in the shadowed garden, I knew my heart was no longer my own. That night the assassins came. I was asleep, tangled in the strange luxury of soft sheets when my chamber door crashed inward. Splinters flew. 2 men, clad in black, faces obscured by cloth masks, surged into the room. My scream was torn from my throat, raw and terrified. I scrambled back, but one was on me in an instant, a hard arm wrapping around my waist, the cold bite of a knife pressing against my neck. Voice tight with fear, where is the king's weak heart? The man holding me hissed, his breath hot and foul against my ear. You die, he suffers. He stops prying into our affairs. Before I could even form a thought of defiance, the door, what was left of it, exploded inward a second time. Rowan stood there, not in armor, but in sleeping trousers, bare-chested and barefoot. Yet he was not a man in that moment. He was a force of nature. His eyes blazed like twin suns, pure, furious gold. Claws had erupted from his fingers, and his canines were elongated, a half shift of pure rage. He was terrifying. magnificent. The assassins saw him. The one holding me threw me aside like a rag doll. I hit the floor, the breath knocked from me. They both drew short swords and charged him. It was not a fight, it was an annihilation. Rowan moved with a speed that blurred. There was a snarl, the sickening crunch of bone, a choked cry. Within the space of 3 heartbeats, both men lay still and broken on my beautiful rug, which was now stained a dark, spreading crimson. He shifted back, his human form returning with a shudder. He was breathing hard, his chest heaving, splattered with blood that was not his own. He turned to me. I was pressed against the wall, shaking so violently my teeth chattered. I was not afraid of him. I was afraid of the void I had just stared into, the cold kiss of the knife still a phantom sensation on my skin. He crossed to me and knelt, his hands hovering, afraid to touch. "Did they hurt you?" he asked, his voice a rough scrape. I could only shake my head, no sound emerging. He gathered me into his arms then, pulling me against his chest. The scent of pine and night air cut through the coppery smell of blood. "You're safe," he murmured into my hair, over and over. "I have you, you're safe." And I broke. Great, heaving sobs racked my body, and he held me through all of them, his large hand cradling my head, his other arm a secure band around my back. He did not tell me to be quiet or that it was over. He just let me fall apart. Eventually, guards arrived, their faces grim. They removed the bodies with efficient silence. A steward came to assess the damage. Through it all, Rowan refused to leave my side. He guided me into the sitting room while Greta was summoned to help me change from my blood-spattered nightdress. He stood guard at the door, his back to the room, a silent, brooding sentinel. When I emerged, clean and clothed but still trembling, he was staring at the dark stain on the floor, his expression carved from stone. "I almost lost you," he said, the words hollow. "But you did not, you saved me. I should not have had to." The words burst from him, sharp with self-loathing. "They came because of me, because you are under my protection. Being near me, Alara, it puts a target on your back. You should care, you should." He ran a hand over his face, smearing a trace of blood. "If I had been 1 minute later, if I had not heard the door break, you would be dead. Because of an oath I made. Because I dragged you into the heart of my world and its dangers." I crossed the room to him. I knelt before the chair where he sat, forcing him to look at me. "If you had not brought me into your world," I said, my voice gaining strength, "I would still be a servant, still invisible, still surviving but not living. You gave me a chance to be more, to be seen. Whatever danger comes with that, it is worth it to me." He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his stern expression shattered. A raw, undisguised fear shone through. "I cannot lose you," he whispered. The thought of it, the image of that blade at your throat, it made me. I have not known fear like that in 350 years, not ever. My breath caught. What does that mean? He reached out, his fingers trembling slightly as they traced the line of my cheekbone, a touch so gentle it made my heart ache. "It means this stopped being about duty a long time ago, for both of us." His thumb brushed a stray tear from my face. "I am falling in love with you, Ilara. I think I have been for weeks. I tried to stop it. I tried to keep my distance to be only your protector. But tonight, when I thought I had lost you, I cannot pretend anymore." The world narrowed to his golden eyes, to the devastating truth in them. "I am an Omega," I breathed. "You are the king, an Alpha, the court it can never work." "I do not care about designations," he said fiercely. "I care about you. The court can learn to accept it or they can leave. They will see it as a scandal. They will say you are bewitched, that I am an opportunist. Let them say what they will." He insisted, his voice dropping to an intense private vow. "You are mine. Not as property, not as duty. as my choice, my heart's choice, if you will have me. You are asking me if I will have you? The impossibility of it swirled around me. I am the king, he said, his eyes holding mine with a vulnerability I knew he showed no one else. And you are the woman I love, so yes, I am asking, will you be mine? He was offering not protection, but partnership, not out of debt, but desire. It was the most terrifying and wonderful question I had ever been asked. My answer was not with words. I leaned forward, closing the distance between us, and pressed my lips to his. He froze for a fraction of a second, then his arms came around me, pulling me from the floor into his lap as he kissed me back. It was not a gentle kiss. It was deep, desperate, a confirmation of life and a banishment of fear. It was a promise. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I found my voice. Voice soft, filled with emotion. Yes, I whispered against his lips. I choose you too. He held me tightly, his face buried in my hair. We stayed like that for a long time. He refused to leave me alone that night. He did not presume. He slept in a large chair pulled to my doorway, a living barrier between me and the world, while I lay in bed, my heart a wild, joyful drum in my chest. The next morning, Rowan called an immediate assembly of the entire court. The great hall was packed, buzzing with nervous speculation about the attempted assassination. I stood beside him on the dais, my knees weak, my hand tucked firmly in his. It was a possessive, declarative gesture that sent a wave of whispers through the crowd. He did not wait for silence. His voice, amplified by the hall's acoustics and his own power, rolled over them. Last night, assassins broke into the chambers of Lady Alara. They sought to kill her to strike at me. A collective gasp rippled through the nobility. They failed, but their attempt has revealed a truth I have been unclear about. He looked down at me, and his gaze softened for all to see before turning back to the assembly, hardening into steel. Lady Alara is under my protection because of a blood oath I swore to her father, the hero Cedric Thorne. But let me be clear now. She is also under my protection because I love her. The silence was absolute, stunned. I intend to court her as my equal, to make her my queen if she will have me. His eyes swept the room, a challenge in their golden depths. And from this moment, anyone who harms her, be it with blade, word, or rumor, will answer to me personally. She is mine, and I am hers. If any of you hold objection, speak it now, or forever hold your peace in my court. The tension in the hall was a living thing. I felt 100 eyes boring into me, judging, weighing, rejecting. Then, from among the elder counselors, Lord Alastair stepped forward. He was the most respected voice among the nobles, his hair white as snow. He bowed slowly to Rowan, then to me. Your Majesty, he said, his voice carrying easily. For decades, this council has advised you to take a queen to secure the lineage. We spoke of political alliances, of merging great houses. He looked at me, his gaze not unkind. We forgot that the strongest alliance is not always of land or gold, but of the heart. Love is rare, especially for one who has lived and ruled as long as you have. If you have found it in Lady Elira, daughter of a man of proven, ultimate loyalty, then the council supports you. We support her. A murmur of agreement, hesitant at first, then growing stronger, rose from many in the hall. Not all faces were pleased. Lady Seraphine S. was a mask of icy fury, but the crucial tide had turned. Rowan had not asked for permission, he had declared, and his most powerful vassal had sanctioned it. Rowan squeezed my hand. Well, he murmured for only me to hear. They await your word. I looked out at the sea of faces, at this world I had been thrust into, and then at the king beside me, my anchor, my impossible love. I took a steadying breath and found my voice clear and firm. I would be honored to be courted by you, your majesty, and I am not afraid of the path ahead. The king's public courtship was a unique and often surreal experience. Privacy was a forgotten concept. A simple walk in the rose garden became a spectacle observed from a dozen windows. Our conversations in the library were the subject of intense gossip, yet Rowan seemed to relish it. He was openly, proudly devoted. His gifts were thoughtful. A book of ancient star charts, for my little star, he'd said, echoing my father. A warm cloak lined with silver fur for the winter. A simple but exquisite necklace. A perfect, polished moonstone set in silver. To match the star, he explained as he fastened it around my neck. It became my most cherished possession. We talked for hours. He told me of centuries of rule, of wars fought and treaties forged, of the profound loneliness of watching generations of friends turn to dust. I shared memories of the orphanage, not just the harshness, but the small, stolen joys, a shared apple, a secret story told by candlelight. We were building a bridge between our vastly different worlds, and with every conversation, the connection deepened into something unshakable. A month into our formal courtship, a visitor arrived at the castle gates. An ancient seer named Morwen, blind and bent with age, who demanded audience with both of us. We received her in a private chamber. I have walked far with a vision burning behind my eyes, she said without preamble, her sightless eyes seeming to pierce us both. It concerns your bonded blood. Bonded blood? I asked. Your lineage, child, it is not the simple Omega line you believe. There is alpha blood in your ancestry. Distant but potent, your great grandfather was a powerful alpha. The strength diluted but did not vanish. It is why your father had the heart of a warrior, and why you have the spirit of one. It is why you do not cower, why you stand tall beside a king. I stared, my mind reeling. Alpha blood. It explained so much: my affinity for training, my latent strength, the defiance that had always simmered beneath my obedience. Morwen turned her head toward Rowan. And you, king. The blood oath you swore? Such oaths only bind with that final, magical weight when the souls recognize a deeper kinship, when the life debt is more than transactional. Your soul recognized hers 19 years ago through the veil of her father's sacrifice. That is why you searched with such desperation. You were not just searching for a duty, you were searching for your destined mate. Mate? Rowan breathed the word, a sacred term in Lycan lore. True mates, Morwen confirmed, a bond woven by fate itself. The oath was the thread that pulled you together through time and obscurity, but you would have found each other eventually. This, she gestured between us, was always the design. She left us then with her world-altering pronouncement. We sat in the ensuing silence, the weight of destiny settling around our shoulders. Can it be true? I finally whispered. It would explain everything, Rowan said, wonder in his voice. Why I could not rest, why finding you feels like coming home after a long, cold journey. Do you believe in destiny, Alara? I looked at him, this king, my protector, my love. I believe in the scar that led me to you, I said. I believe in the father who saved you, and I believe in this. I took his hand. If that is destiny, then yes, I believe. 3 months after the night of the scar, Rowan took me to a secluded part of the castle gardens I had never seen. In its center stood a new, beautiful stone statue. It depicted a soldier in simple armor, not attacking but standing firm, a shield raised in protection. At its base was a plaque, Cedric Thorne. He gave his life for his king. His honor is eternal. Tears blurred my vision. When did you do this? I commissioned it the week after I found you, he said softly. I needed him to be remembered, not just by me, but by all. He deserved more than a forgotten grave. I touched the cool stone of my father's carved face, seeing the kindness the sculptor had captured in his eyes. Thank you. He deserves our thanks every day, Rowan said. Then, to my astonishment, he went down on one knee in the grass before the statue. He took my hand and looked up at me, his expression solemn and open. Ilara, your father saved my life 19 years ago, but you have saved something I thought was lost forever. You saved my heart, my hope. My ability to believe in a future beyond duty and solitude. He pulled a ring from his pocket, a band of braided gold and platinum, simple, strong, and beautiful. I do not want to rule this kingdom alone anymore. I do not want to face centuries more without you by my side. I want to build a family, a legacy of honor with you. Will you marry me? Will you be my queen in every sense of the word? I looked from his earnest, loving face to the statue of my father, who seemed to watch over us with calm approval. The circle felt complete. The sacrifice had led to this moment, to this love. Yes, I said, my voice strong with certainty. Yes, Rowan, always. He slid the ring onto my finger, stood, and kissed me there in the shadow of my father's memory, a kiss of promise and profound joy. Our wedding was a celebration for the entire kingdom. I wore a gown of ivory and silver, embroidered with tiny stars and moons, my father's moonstone at my throat. I walked toward Rowan, who stood in full ceremonial armor, a crown of oak and iron on his brow, his eyes only for me. The vows we exchanged were traditional, but we added our own. I vow, Rowan said, his voice echoing in the sunlit courtyard, to honor the man who gave his life so I could live to love you. I vow to protect his daughter, his legacy, with every breath in my body. And I vow to love you, not because of destiny or debt, but because you are the greatest gift of my long life. Tears of joy streamed down my face as I gave my own. I vow to honor my father's memory by being brave and true. I vow to stand beside you, to be your partner and your heart's refuge. And I vow to love you for seeing me when I was invisible, for making me matter, for being my home and my future. When we were pronounced king and queen, the cheers of the people were a thunderous wave of sound. But all I heard was the steady beat of his heart against mine as he kissed me, sealing our forever. The years that followed were a testament to a love that had grown from impossible roots. I learned to rule, not as a figurehead, but as a queen with a unique perspective. I remembered the servants' quarters, the orphanage's chill. I established reforms, fair wages and decent lodgings for castle staff, a royal charter for orphanages that emphasized education and care over labor. I became known as the people's queen, and their affection for me became a new kind of strength for Rowan's reign. We were blessed with 3 children, twin boys, Alastair and Cadden, full of boundless energy and their father's golden eyes, and a daughter, Lyra, who had my quiet watchfulness and a smile that could light a hall. They were strong, healthy, a beautiful blend of our Alpha and Omega heritage, a symbol of a new, unified future. One afternoon, 15 years into our marriage, we were in the memorial garden. Our children played a spirited game near the hedges, their laughter music on the air. I stood before my father's statue, as I often did. I wish he could have known them, I said softly, seen all this. Rowan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. He does see my love. I believe that with all my soul, and I know he is proud. I leaned back into his solid warmth, contentment a slow river in my veins. Do you ever think about that night? I asked. The feast. If I had been assigned to the kitchens that evening, if I had never seen your scar, I think, he said, his voice a low rumble in my ear, that I would have searched for another 19 years, and another 100 after that, if need be. We were meant to find each other, Alara. Your father made certain of it. When he saved my life, he was saving our future, too. He gave me the chance to love you. I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who was my king, my mate, my everything. The journey from that terrified servant girl to this moment felt like a sacred story. My father had this scar, I said, the words a familiar, cherished beginning. Rowan smiled, that slow, tender smile that was for me alone. He kissed my forehead. Yes, he did, and it changed everything. The legacy of a scar is not just a story of wounding, but of healing, of connections made across time and station. In the great tapestry of the kingdom's history, the tale of King Rowan and Queen Alara became a favorite, a story of honor repaid, of love triumphing over convention, of how the most invisible among us can hold the most profound power to change a destiny. I never forgot the feel of a scrubbing brush in my hand, the chill of the stone floor at dawn. That memory kept me humble, kept my heart true to those who still lived in the shadows. The reforms we enacted flourished, making Lyrandal a fairer, stronger realm. Our children grew, inheriting their grandfather's courage, their father's strength, and, I hoped, a little of their mother's compassion. Rowan and I would still walk in the oath chamber sometimes, our fingers tracing the ancient carving that bound our lives together. It was no longer a marker of debt, but a monument to the beginning of our story. The wolves, now gray muzzled but still devoted, slept at our hearth, a contented pack that had seen a family born from a promise. On the anniversary of my father's death each year, we would go to the memorial garden, just the two of us. We would stand in silence, offering not grief but gratitude. The statue of Cedric Thorne watched over a kingdom at peace, a royal family united in love, a daughter who had been found and cherished. The scar on Rowan's shoulder faded to silver with the passing decades, a map of the past I would sometimes trace with my fingers, just as I had traced my father's. It was a reminder, a promise, a beginning. For sometimes, the smallest moment, a glance, a question, a memory of three pale lines on skin, can unravel an entire life and weave it back together into something more beautiful and strong than anyone could have dreamed. It is a testament that no one is truly invisible, that honor echoes through generations, and that love, once awakened, can light the darkest of nights and rule a kingdom with a gentle, steadfast hand. The end. Like the video, subscribe, kiss the bell icon, and comment part 2 if you want the story to continue.